What's up, SVSers? We are back.
Hey.
Nick,
Morning,
Larry,
everybody.
Gary, welcome back. We're back for another virtual Audiophile happy hour here. Super excited. We have a lot of suggestions already coming in for musical playlists, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But Gary, can you kick us off with some thoughts as you always do?
Well, first of all, so happy to be back with everybody. That's what this is all about. It's feeling connected with you guys, our SVS community. Want to make it clear, as we always do, we know that it's weird out there. It's a pandemic. Some people have lost their jobs. Some people have gotten sick. Some people have even lost loved ones. We feel your pain. This is just about us saying, hey, we care about all of you guys, and we love being with you, even if it has to be virtual. So shout out to our whole community, and let's have some fun for the next hour or so.
Love it. And for those of you who may be joining for the very first time, basically what we do here, we just kind of riff on all things audio. We'll be doing random giveaways throughout the evening. And I do have to give a special shout out to Vince, who is working behind the scenes with the SVS team, helping with the giveaways and doing some of the comment stuff. So appreciate his effort doing that. And we're doing something special tonight. And we're asking for everyone who's commenting to offer some of their favorite songs that they would love to demo on a high-end system, or what they use to sort of show their system off to their friends. And Gary, there's some sort of specific things we look for with songs when we're choosing them for demos. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what those are?
Well, for us, because it's critical, we spend a lot of time listening to speakers, even listening to a subwoofer, and it's weird when you have to do that, by the way. But I've learned in years and years of caring about great sound and trying to create the best sound possible, that there are certain things certain kinds of demo that show what a speaker can do. For example, female voice. We always have several examples of female voice. It's difficult, and some male voice. We believe in using acoustic instruments, electric instruments, deep bass, but also acoustic bass. So, for example, cello would be something very difficult to reproduce. I use Bach cello suites as one of the things to evaluate not only speakers, but a subwoofer. We also have some hip hop that we use. I'm not going to lay out tracks just yet. I may have some ideas for you guys, but we wanted to hear what you all think. What do you use when you want to really show off your system? Nick, do we want to talk about what we've been listening to for the past couple of weeks?
How did I forget that? I just wanted to get the songs rolling in there. I'm already seeing some really great suggestions. And the other part of this I didn't mention, we'll be referencing it throughout. We're actually going to create a playlist of all the suggestions here. And we usually get a couple thousand comments. So this will be hours and hours, days and days of songs that you can treat yourself to. But I did skip what we've been listening to. And Larry, I know you've been digging into stuff, but you're also very excited about some things that are coming. Share.
Yeah, I've been revisiting the Rocky franchise. A buddy of mine, he started doing it, so I've gone back and done that. But picked up The Old Guard on Netflix over the weekend, and it was really well done, so I was pretty stoked for that. And I think evidence tonight. I'm pretty excited for the new Bill and Ted movie that they announced today will be coming to video on demand here in the next 5-6 weeks. So
Wild
I think we're all looking for that. Wild Stallions, man, they're going to change the world.
That had a lot of buzz today. The Bill and Ted movie had a lot of buzz today, and I think they made the announcement September 1st. My calendar's marked. That was a cult classic and a favorite of mine growing up. Now, Gary, I think you have some new vinyl that you picked up. But what else are you digging?
I just saw a vote for Hans Zimmer, Larry. Another Hans Zimmer sale. Yeah, I'm excited about.
There's a few that I never want to hear too. I'm seeing some of those.
Look what came in the mail today.
Upside down, sir.
Is that upside down? Sorry about that. I'm a little upside down. That's the new Dylan album on vinyl. So I'm excited. I'm going to listen to that. Not tonight, because tonight I'm excited to watch my Nationals play baseball. It's opening day in Major League Baseball. I'm pretty excited about that.
Live sports.
Yes.
Yeah, live sports. I truly am excited about it. I'm not the major sports guy, but I am this time. Also, did you know, you guys, this is going to get me in trouble, I know, with some of our community. There is an important album that's dropping tonight at midnight. Did we hear the news about this?
T Swift
has a new album that's dropping at midnight.
How did I know you would be referencing
I'm pretty interested in that. I'm not going to lie. It's got 16 tracks plus a bonus track, so I'll be interested in that. Hopefully we'll get it in high resolution.
So, I mean, the production value for a Taylor Swift album, not that I want to go down this road of talking about this for a long time, but I mean, there's a lot of great production value that goes into that.
We actually use a track from 1989, her album 1989, we used to test bass because it's just got tremendous deep bass. Yeah, I wouldn't, by the way, for us, this is an important question about choosing demo material to evaluate speakers. Not necessarily to show off speakers or make them sound better than they are, but to evaluate them. We don't necessarily go for the audiophile recordings because I don't think normal people sit around and listen to music poorly played but well recorded, or bad songs that sound really good. So for us, it's a mix of audiophile recordings, but also just regular stuff that we love. You know, so for example, there is Bob Dylan that we use in our speaker demos because it is real stuff that real people listen to. We use Kendrick Lamar, the phenomenal hip hop artist, to evaluate speakers as well. We use Kanye West, which I don't think is even that well recorded, but we know that people listen to that. So it's a mix of traditional audiophile stuff and just normal music that people listen to. Because we want to make sure no matter what content you're using, you're going to enjoy your speakers.
Well, I may not be listening to it at midnight tonight. I will check out some of the songs. What I've been watching actually recently, I did see the movie Palm Springs on Hulu, which I do recommend for a comedy. It's very
I like
out
that.
there.
I saw it too.
It was a good one, and the buzz is worth it. And I did start The Dark, which I know a lot of people are the first episode of Dark, not The Dark. Wow, I'm looking clueless there.
The German series.
Yeah, basically, and it just drew me in right away. So I'll be looking forward to picking up on that. And back to the live sports, Larry, there's a boxing match that me and you were talking about earlier today. What's that coming up?
Dude, Mike Tyson's making a comeback and may look faster than he did when he was in his prime. And he's going to be doing an exhibition with Roy Jones Jr., so two of the greatest fighters of all time. I'm pretty stoked to see that. I don't know what it'll be like, but it should be fun to see.
Yeah,
hey, John Oaken, we do use Tool and we use A Perfect Circle as some of our hard music that we use to evaluate speakers.
Little known
Tool,
SVS fact, Gary took us to a Tool concert as a
That's
team
true.
building activity. 5 years ago? 4 or 5 years ago.
That was fun, right?
Oh, I had a blast. So I think it was Pittsburgh, right? And
Pittsburgh.
Yes, it was a great experience there. But just so anyone who's tuned in a little bit after, we are asking you for your favorite demo tracks and just songs you like to show off a good system. We'll be creating a playlist and saving all of these great suggestions. So look forward to that.
Hey, Nick, I'm seeing questions about the giveaways. We better tell people about the giveaways.
Yes. So we're doing them at random. Larry, do you remember what the giveaways are? Should I fill in the blanks?
No, we're doing 4 tonight, so I'll make sure I get all 4 of them straight. We are giving away a pair of Prime Elevation speakers, a pair of Prime bookshelves, a pair of Prime wireless, and an SB 2000 Pro. So I think I got all 4 of those correct and didn't even have to look at my notes.
Good job,
you got the
good
order
job, Bill
correct
Larry.
as well.
Yeah.
So that first giveaway you mentioned was the Prime Elevation speakers, and we actually had a question from last week from Brian H, and he asked sort of a 2-part question. Do you have to have a smooth ceiling for Atmos? And then secondarily, how do we feel about Atmos music? So Larry, maybe you can address the ceiling question because I think there's some nuance there that needs to be discussed.
Well, I think what he's referring to is probably one of the applications for Atmos, which would be the reflective toppers. And it's not something that we do as a company, but that if that's the way you've got to go, that is typically what's recommended, and normally a smaller size room. But our solution, you don't have to rely on your ceiling. It's the elevation speakers, which somebody's going to win tonight. You know, you can really kind of place them anywhere and take advantage of the height effects, whether they're fronts, sides, rears, ceiling, walls, whatever you need to do, you can really take advantage of that. And it's a phenomenal experience.
And it's important to note that with those ceiling toppers, like the shape of your ceiling is critically important, like whether it's slanted, smooth,
and where you're sitting.
Yeah,
like even if the room is perfect, it's really only going to work for people in the perfect seating position, and even then, it works at a limited level. But if you're in the wrong seating position, it might not work at all. Which is why whether whether you choose SVS's solution or Prime Elevation or another brand solution, I think direct radiating is definitely preferable if you can make it work in your room. Because counting on the ceiling bounce for every person in the room is really, really hopeful. Whereas direct radiating signal will work for everyone.
Yeah, the dispersion you get from the ceiling can be very unpredictable. So you may have a sweet spot and the signal is actually going nowhere near that, or it's not dispersing to a wide area, so only one seat gets it. There's a lot of things that can happen with the ceiling reflection. But
one of my points is that when you're doing a Dolby Atmos full-on home theater, you probably want to have a really uncompromised experience. So it seems a shame to compromise one of the most fun parts of that experience, which is the height effects. Leave it said at that, I guess.
Yeah, and the second part of that question was Atmos music. And I think some of the best Atmos music experiences I've had, and seeing some of the comments here probably agree, are the Blu-rays. Some of the live concerts, that's the most exciting place for Dolby Atmos music. I don't think there's a lot of just plain, well, there probably is a lot, but it hasn't got as popular as the Blu-ray experience. I mean, Hans Zimmer was the first one mentioned. Is there others that you can mention there, Larry?
Yeah, if you guys are fans of NXS, they just released a 4K version of their Wembley concert from a long time ago, and the sound on it's amazing to kind of go along with their Atmos re-release of Kick. The Imagine Dragons Smoke and Mirrors disc is actually really good too, so if you have a chance to check that one out. And Evanescence is another one that I play every now and then, and that's...
I don't remember if I said this last show, so if I did, I apologize, but I signed up for Disney Plus just so I could see Hamilton. And Hamilton is in full-on 4K with Dolby... I don't know if it's Dolby Vision. I think it is Dolby Vision and HDR, and it's full-on Dolby Atmos, and it sounds really, really good. So even if you're not into that kind of thing, it's a musical. I don't think I'm into musicals, but I have several friends who are like, you have to see Hamilton. And now that it's on Disney Plus, it really is a cool experience. Great, if you're stuck at home and you have a date night with you're fortunate enough to be with your loved one at home, that's a good date night, a virtual date night.
I mean, Gary, you love live concert experiences, and you can't get that right now. So I think the Dolby Atmos experience in a multi-channel surround sound system is about as close as you can get. And when you get some of these mixes that give you that overhead sound that sort of put you in that stadium, Larry knows one of my favorite demo tracks is a Rammstein track that really kind of puts you in the middle. And it's not an audio.
Is that the one where we're on the treadmill?
Yes, the guy playing the guitar shooting lightning out of it on the treadmill. I mean, there's just so much going on, and pyrotechnics, and all of that comes through. In a multi-channel system, especially with the height effects to add extra layer. So really exciting. But I think
the comments are coming so fast. But that person who mentioned The Mandalorian, I've also heard. I'm looking forward to watching Mandalorian on Disney Plus. I've heard that's a really good demo.
But watch the behind the scenes show that they did with it too, and the final episodes on the music, and it was unbelievable to see what the composer did with that.
Well, I think it's time to give away some Prime Elevation speakers. So we're going and we're looking. It's going to be Facebook. Zach Bauer from Facebook. You'll be getting a message from Vince on the SVS team. Congratulations. You will want a pair of Prime Elevation speakers for your home theater. Enjoy those bad boys. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Which Rammstein song?
Du hast.
Du hast. Yeah, somebody else wrote that
album. Anybody that picks up that Blu-ray, just know what you're getting into, because it's not family friendly.
Yeah, I wouldn't play it for the kids. But it's a phenomenally immersive experience. I will say that. So we do have a guest. We didn't announce this guest. He's a two-time person who's been on.
We have two guests, right?
Virtual. That's right. Well, I was, going to tease the second guest.
I'm sorry. Am I ruining your thunder?
I know you love spoilers. But he's a very special guest, a favorite of our community, Mr. Smith Freeman, our Director of Product Management. Smith, how are you, buddy?
Great. Good to see you guys. Cheers.
Good to see you. It's 3:00 in Reno, Nevada. And
Smith, come on now.
Drinking on the clock. But welcome. And,
Smith is in Reno, so it's not 6:00 in Reno last time I checked.
It is happy hour, though.
This tells you that SVS is a happy place to work. If Smith can be hoisting scotches in the middle of the day in front of the CEO, you got to.
This is how I get to drink it.
You got to say this is a fun place to work.
where some
There
of
are
his best
fringe-
ideas come from, right?
fringe
We'll see.
benefits there. But Smith, you must have some song suggestions. But I first have to ask: anything new you've been watching, listening to that our community might appreciate hearing about?
I did just watch The Witcher over the last week. I know that's not new at all, but I just never got around to it. So I, wanted some late night junk food, and that was adequate as late night junk food.
I thought it was really good. I mean, as far as those sort of fantasy experiences go, I mean, I thought it was just, very entertaining, very watchable, as I like to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking forward to the next season, so I'll give it that for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, as a speaker designer, I think people would be especially interested to know what kind of songs you like to either demo or critically sort of assess speakers. You got any golden tracks you can share with us?
I mean, it's funny. I actually have two different playlists. I have the playlist that I basically have developed with Gary, and like that's where a lot of the Bob Dylan and the Perfect Circle and a bunch of Miles Davis tracks, 9 Inch Nails, and there's like
Mozart, Bob.
And those are all the tracks that give me a panic attack if they just like casually come on.
Right.
But then I have my other list, which is just for me, and I don't dive into for critical listening unless I'm towards the end of the tuning process. So in there, I've got No Excuses from Alice in Chains. I've got some stuff from Atoms for Peace, Bjork.
Bjork.
More 9 Inch Nails.
Gary had a favorite Bjork track that we would put on, and it would always clear the demo room because it was so weird. And every once in a while,
it is weird, but that's from
the
that
dynamic
concert.
range and the frequency range extension
And the bass.
Yeah.
Literally shake, not
Yeah.
our room. It shakes the rooms like 5 rooms over.
It can be a little jarring, yeah.
Remember the name of that song? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think it was. I think I got it right here. Hyper Ballad, probably.
Yeah, she's dressed like an amoeba or something and sort of floating around.
Oh no, that was from Biophilia.
Oh no, that's from
Biophilia.
Biophilia.
It's actually a great demo, despite the fact that it always clears the room.
Yeah,
but actually, there's one song that I've been really enjoying a lot, and the name of the song is "Mama Says," and it's by these two sisters. And I'm gonna say their name wrong, but I think it's Ibiyi or Ibiyi, Ibeyyi. But it's like beginning to end. It's a really well recorded, just a great example of what a female voice can do, and good dynamic range. It's a great track.
Did you see Chris Martin from Coldplay is endorsing 9 Inch Nails?
I just caught that too.
Smart guy.
Could be the same one. Could be. So Smith, you weren't with us last week. The legendary Ed Mullen was, but we talked a little bit about amplifiers and the difference between those and AV receivers. And a question came from Bradley S. from that conversation, basically about the difference between tube and solid state amplifiers. Do they sound different? What are the sort of properties? What can you share us in your illustrious knowledge of working with amplifiers about that?
Yeah, I mean, tube versus solid state is probably the biggest division in flavors of amplifiers. I mean, generally speaking, tube amps actually usually have higher distortion, but it's of even order, especially second order distortion, which if you're a guitar player is generally described as like kind of a warm or pleasant sound. Whereas solid state amplifiers are usually odd order distortion, which is generally not perceived.
So just to paraphrase you are saying tube amplifiers actually have a little bit more distortion,
right?
But it's the kind of distortion that sounds pleasant to the human ear.
Yeah, that's right.
Warmer.
And then warmer. And so beyond that, I mean, tube amps are typically maybe more expensive for less power. They're usually not really high power amplifiers.
Not as gutsy. Would you agree? Not as gutsy typically.
Yeah, you're going to rely on other parts of the system to make output to meet certain levels if you need it. And then also tube amps generally are more delicate. I mean, the tubes themselves are basically kind of like a light bulb, and they have a life to them. Whereas solid state is far more robust, is able to make huge current much more efficiently, and is basically much more reliable over the long run. And then there's different flavors of solid state once you get into that. But Yeah.
So would you ever combine them in a system? Would you ever mix them in a system?
I would never mix a tube amp and a solid state amp. There are individual amplifiers that maybe have like a tube output stage and a solid state front end or something like that.
I mean, I'm going to say categorically, there's no power amplifier made anymore that is only tube. It's always going to be basically a hybrid design of tubes and transistors. Back in the day, many years ago, I'm an old man in case you didn't know, we sold a 250 watt per channel only tube amp made by Audio Research called the D250, which is a total classic. But you literally needed to replace the tubes like every couple of months, and that was really expensive. So the person who buys that is in for a long ride.
You know, a lot of those tube amps will even have basically like a counter on it to basically show like, oh, you've run this thing for like 300 hours, dude. Like time to change those out.
Right.
Which is not.
And by the way, they get really warm.
Well, that's what I was going to ask next. Is the power? Is there any difference in running them from a regular circuit, one from the other? Does one require more out of the wall, or what's the?
That's not really the determining factor. It's more. I mean, end of the day, like it's a little bit of a personal choice if you want to go down the path of tubes. And I wouldn't necessarily say that you're wrong to do that. It's a little bit of a different compromise. So. Yeah. But for example, like our subwoofers are all Class D amplifiers, which is a solid state amplifier, and that's a particular flavor of solid state amplifiers, and that's because we're trying to generate huge power. It's built into the product, and it needs to be super efficient. And Class D.
Then we marry it up with an analog MOSFET
with the MOSFET output stage,
trying to gain the best of both worlds, right?
Right. That's right.
Efficiency with the current. Yeah. So, well, I think that satiated the amplifier, tube state amplifier. I'm sure there's not a ton of people out there who are running tubes currently, but it is good to know because it's an option, and I know some people, they swear by them. So, it's good knowledge.
Let me ask you a question, Smith. Do you leave your power? Most of us leave our preamp on, unless we're trying to save energy. I guess I shouldn't be too politically incorrect there. But do you turn your power amp off when you're finished using it?
I leave everything fully on all the time, but that's certainly not the most efficient thing for my electric bill. But amp, preamp, DAC, the whole thing. I just leave it on all the time.
Interesting. All right.
So just to remind everyone, you see a lot of songs coming through the comment fields. We are asking and building a playlist out of all the suggestions of your favorite demo songs. So if you joined recently, throw in your favorite artist and name of a song, and we will include it in a playlist coming up. So we had another question last week, and I've actually seen this one a lot, and I think it's
where's the playlist going to go?
Spotify, Qobuz, and probably Amazon Music too.
So a Qobuz playlist, if you have Qobuz, then you can hear the favorite demo tracks that all of you guys are suggesting in high res. We're going to talk about high res today, aren't we? Isn't that true?
We are with our next special guest.
Okay.
But we have one more topic we wanted to cover here, and this came in from Chris M, and he asked about the difference between prime and ultra speakers, and sort of what is the difference sound quality wise, and just how do you sort of rank those between each other? And Smith, I think you're a great person to answer this.
Yeah, I mean, Prime Series was really made with Ultra Series as the inspiration, and so everything that we did with the Prime Series was totally derived from what we did in the Ultra Series, and that's why we talk about them being timbre matched, so that you can mix and match them. But for the most part, it was trying to preserve all the things from the Ultra Series that make them great performers, and figure out how to package them and bring them into a form factor that would allow us to bring them in at a lower price. And I think someone was mentioning the Prime bookshelf versus the Ultra bookshelf, and to me that's a little bit of the sleeper of the Prime series, because those two are probably the closest. The Ultra bookshelf is better for sure. It's a bigger cabinet. We're using better cone and other materials in it. It has better crossover components in it. There's other features to it that definitely make it a better bookshelf speaker, but the Prime bookshelf is, Gary, would you say 95% of the Ultra bookshelf. It's really.
I love them both, but
Yeah.
for me, I guess I have lots of different favorites for different reasons, but I love Ultra bookshelves and actually have two different systems featuring Ultra bookshelves. But in terms of Prime series, maybe my favorite overall SVS speaker right now, it goes back and forth, but I've been having so much fun with Prime Pinnacle. So maybe, and I did see a question about, oh, here it is. Nick put it up. I think this is probably the #1 question that comes up because they're so close in price. Prime Pinnacle versus Ultra Tower. I've talked about the differences. Maybe you may or may not agree fully with what I've said. I think you kind of do, but I'll let you do it. I won't this time.
I mean, I am a little bit biased.
Because it's your latest child.
Yeah. So I will say that there are things that the Ultra Tower does that the Prime Pinnacle does not. I mean, just in terms of sheer low frequency output and depth, the Ultra Tower obviously is going to be a better performer. And I think the Ultra Tower is a little bit more efficient, just overall. But I think that there's like a neutrality and honesty that we were able to achieve with Prime Pinnacles. Yeah, that I'm going to
sit and listen to that Bob Dylan with my vinyl setup, which I did show a few weeks ago. And there's a refinement to it that is just joyful. I just love it.
Oh, Larry, you talk to people every day about the differences between our speakers and subwoofers. And so, I think you have experienced them in every possible setting on showroom floors and homes and everything. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Well, I applaud Smith on the Pinnacle. It's my favorite speaker in our lineup.
Thank you.
And, it did get a lot of accolades last year for that. But
we got some more accolades coming.
Yeah, hey,
I'm not allowed to say.
Maybe.
I'm going to let Gary do that. I primed the pump there, but I'm not going to say it. But to me, the Ultra Towers are a phenomenal speaker. And they definitely are great for music. They're great for movies. The Pinnacle for me, just because of my particular family, it works because I have 5 dogs and don't really have some of the space that the Ultra would really benefit from. And so for me, the Pinnacle I've got downstairs in the living room, and then any day now I'm going to swap out the Prime Towers I have in this room for the Pinnacles because I want those up here too.
I think one thing
that is important.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'll be really quick. It is an important point if you're choosing between Prime Pinnacle and Ultra Tower. Ultra Towers really sing when they have a lot of air around them. So when they're out from the wall, they're not. There's not a side wall. They're not up against a cabinet to the inside of them either. So if you can do that, then Ultra Towers will be at their best. Whereas Prime Pinnacles, they like air too, which I'm discovering in my theater right now because my Prime Pinnacles are really out there in space. But if you need to shove it up against a wall or within, like have something on either side of them, the Prime Pinnacles really do well in that scenario.
You'll still be rewarded with them. Totally.
Yeah, they'll still sound great.
Yeah.
Well, one thing we should always mention when we're having this conversation is that the Prime and the Ultra Series are, I used to say timbre matched, but Smith taught me it's timbre matched. Even though it's TIMBRE, it's pronounced timbre matched. So you can blend all of your Prime and Ultra speakers together in a system, and they'll sound great. And I'm actually interested. What is that common? Is that something that a lot of speaker makers do? Is sort of make the various series timbre matched?
I don't think it's not common at all. And even I'm going to say this, even they don't always timbre match between speakers in a series.
In the line, yeah.
In the line. It's like shocking to me that sometimes the center channel, for example, or the surround speakers, they didn't pay much attention to the timbre of those. Smith?
No, I think that's true. I think there are some companies that probably do a better job about it than others, but for sure it's definitely not common to have timbre matching across the entire product line. And for sure there are definitely companies where it's kind of like, center channels are just the center channels, and they were kind of like tuned in a vacuum. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I just seeing a lot of the pictures that people post on social. There's a lot of Prime Pinnacles with Ultra Centers. It's
that's a great combination.
That is a really good combination.
That's a great combination.
If you have a big room, especially, and you just need that little extra output, you want a little more, extension from the center. It's a nice option to have. So I think it was whoever's idea it was, pat yourself on the back, I guess. There, but I think it means we should do a giveaway now. Why not?
Let's
So
do it.
this, we're going to be giving away a pair of SVS Prime bookshelf speakers here. And our winner is from YouTube. And I hope I say this right. Ken Asaoka from YouTube. Ken Asaoka, you will be contacted by Vince. Congratulations. You will be enjoying some Prime bookshelf speakers. And I think on that note, we are ready for our first ever five person virtual audiophile happy hour.
Madness.
And Gary, maybe I'll let you run the hype for this guest because you know a lot more about his background than I do. And
Okay.
I would just like to welcome Mr. Mitch Witten to the broadcast here. Gary, what can you tell us about Mitch?
Mitch is another director of product development for SVS. I've known Mitch almost 30 years. Mitch is a speaker guy in his DNA. He worked with some real legends in our industry, including Arnie Nudell from Infinity and Kerry Christie, also from Infinity. He's worked with, I believe, Floyd Toole when he was at Harman, and was most recently, prior to SVS, working with DTS. So he understands so much about digital technology. Oh, and he was also a big part of Beats, believe it or not, the really cool, interesting headphones and stuff that I also had a small part in once upon a time. So Mitch has a very rich and varied experience both in the world of speakers, analog design, and then also digital to analog conversion, which we talked about DACs last week, and we realized there's a lot of confusion and a lot of interest in the differences. So we thought Mitch would be a good guest.
We'll get into that, Gary. But I would love for someday somebody to introduce me like that and give me that much of a
All right, I'm going to do that. I'll introduce you in the next show.
I'm just Nick.
You gotta get older, Nick.
Be careful what you wish for.
I know.
Introducing each other.
Mitch,
You got too much hair, Nick.
Someday. But so basically, Mitch, we want to know some of what you've been watching, and then maybe a couple tracks, because you have a rich mind filled with musical history and all sorts of experiences. So tell us what you've been watching and give us some songs that you've been demoing.
Well,
And not the Bernadette Peters.
watching. It's on my list. No, it's as far as watching goes, it's kind of funny, but I came across, just scanning the channels last night, The Godfather, which I hadn't seen in a really, really long time. One of my all-time favorite movies. So I did do a late night session and watch the whole thing from beginning to end. It was just a great movie. As far as listening goes, the demo tracks is one thing, but as far as, if you're talking about what I've been listening to recently, kind of been on a bit of a blues bend, and there's a group of two young girls called Larkin Poe. It's a strange name. Poe is actually part of Edgar Allan Poe. He was like their great-great-grandfather or something like that. But they're two relatively young girls, and they do roots blues music. One plays a lap steel, one plays electric guitar. Their voices blend really well together. The music is recorded really, really well. I really
maybe you
like
should
that.
add some
and then as far
decor
as
to your room. You might not have the blues as bad if you add some decor there behind you. Looks like you're being held hostage.
yeah, what can I tell you?
That's all good.
The way this particular room lays out for me to use the computers and stuff. It's a blank wall.
Well, I am going to check out Larkin Poe. Was it an album? A new Larkin Poe album?
Yeah, there's the newest one. I can't remember the name of it. I'll check before we get done. But yeah, or I can check right now. Yeah, or you can check on it. But yeah, the other person I've been listening to blues wise is a guitarist by the name of Eric Gales. And if anybody's in the blues guitar and you haven't checked this guy out, go search him out on YouTube. He's a guy who was a child prodigy, kind of went down the wrong pathway with drugs and alcohol and whatnot, and has made a comeback in the last few years. He's playing with Joe Bonamassa. He's playing with Beth Hart. The guy is absolutely remarkable in terms of his style and his tone, very unique. And he's kind of like the one that if you ask any guitar player right now who's the hot blues guitar player, they'll tell you Eric Gales.
Well, I think that's a great segue.
That's what I've been.
It's a great segue into our next topic because we actually touched on DACs a little bit last week, and Mike H sent in a question. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, but he's interested in lossless audio and streaming devices. How can you get the most out of some of these services when you're paying for that highest bit rate? On the basically, what hardware do you need? What can you tell us about people are getting the most out of that high res music?
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, you have to have the right music service. So, you need to make sure that the music service that you're listening to is capable of playing back at either bit for bit or the at 24:192 obviously is the highest resolution that you can come across. And there are services out there that will do that. But the key to it is that on the playback side, you've got to have a DAC that's capable of decoding that music bit for bit as well.
So what kind of conversations?
We spent a lot of time.
Yeah, I'm curious what kind of conversations happened, within the SVS family when we were deciding sort of how to put this together and how to get the most out of that. I mean, that's pretty interesting.
For Prime Wireless, you mean?
Yeah, for the Prime Wireless system and Soundbase.
No, we had a lot of them between Gary Smith and myself. A lot of late night conversations about how far do we want to go and what are the critical aspects of the design of this product to get us to be able to play back at that high resolution. And it really came down to several things. One of them was that we needed to choose the right platform that would enable us to be able to stream those high resolution formats to our product. The other thing is that on the playback side, it's really a sum of all the parts. So you can have the greatest DAC in the world, but if your speaker design isn't good, if your drivers aren't good, if your amplifier isn't good, any one of those things can destroy everything. So when we pay attention to designing a product like this, it's really, we pay attention to every single part of it. So we're focusing on the sound of the product. We're focusing on the quality of the drivers and how they work. We're focusing on the user interface and how easy it is to use a product like this as well. But the main thing is...
Wasn't the big conversation when we were all, the three of us were kicking this around over and over again, we were like, are people going to appreciate this product in this space where people don't really care, or the industry wisdom is no one cares about great sound in this, like in a smart speaker. They would rather, get an Amazon Dot and have 20 of them around their house. And we said, no, we kind of said to ourselves, we want to make something different than that has really great sound. But it was a big decision, right? I mean, you get the most expensive DAC, and that's a little scary if people won't appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where we came to the conclusion, I think collectively, that people do care. We know that from the people that buy our products, and so we made the conscious decision from the beginning that we were going to design a product that was capable of reproducing the highest resolution files that were available, but also a product that really sounded warm, natural, great. It didn't, we wanted to make it an SVS great quality loudspeaker.
Over Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Over Wi-Fi.
That's an important point. It does it over Wi-Fi. And that we don't, Nick said, don't say this every time, but I mean, we're not trying to do an advertisement, but what we said to ourselves is, what's the point of a high res streaming service, for example, if you don't have a DAC that can do high res, and then you can't listen to it in a normal listening environment like Wi-Fi, over your Wi-Fi in full lossless high res. So that was kind of our goal.
And Larry, you've been out on the road, and not so much anymore, but you were seeing all of the wireless audio options out there, and the quality DAC isn't always something that's looked upon as a necessity, but I think it's pretty important. What other qualities of a wireless speaker do you view as critical in terms of getting the most out of these high-res tracks?
Well, the ability to do 24:192, I think, is key, because that's where a lot of the streaming services have gone now. Functionality besides just being one speaker. I think that's one thing that's really phenomenal about the Prime Wireless and the Soundbase is you can put 16 of them around your house and listen to 16 different things, or everybody play the same thing at once. And so you've got a lot of functionality there. And if you look at the multi-room wireless category or wireless speakers in general, they're normally for one room if you want to listen to stereo. And that's
maybe we should just because I feel like we're getting very deep in the weeds on the technology, I do want to say one thing. we're saying 24-bit 192 kilohertz. So what does that really mean? Well, think of digital as the width of the pipe, for example, and that's or it's called a word. So 16-bit is what CD is. That's the width of the pipe of CD. 24-bit is obviously a much wider pipe. And then 44,000 hertz, that's the speed of CD. That's how fast it goes.
It's a sample rate. It's how many
sample rate, exactly. Yeah. And 192, yes, excuse me, the speed of the sampling rate. Right. And 192,000 hertz, that is the speed of the sampling rate of high res. So that's how you can kind of understand the difference. And what happens is, since you're kind of drawing a graph of the sound wave, it now becomes very smooth because it's being drawn at a sampling rate that's so high and with a pipe width that is so wide.
And Smith, you want to take a crack at answering this question, the comment that I've flashed here about FLAC versus other lossless codecs?
Versus vinyl?
Well, I guess, does it offer?
Well,
I mean, here's the great debate.
Right. So, I mean, Gary's talking about is, the different ranges of digital files. So basically, vinyl is analog, right? This is kind of like maybe the holy grail, where you have this very totally smooth wave signal that if you zoom in on it, it's always smooth. It's always that natural curvature of the signal. And digital is basically, how do we put that into zeros and ones? And you got to chop it up into little pieces, and you have to be able to transmit that as zeros and ones. So, I mean, there are inherent differences with analog and digital. The nice thing about digital, and as technology's gotten better, is that we can do these high resolution files, right? So we can get closer and closer and closer to that analog signal. And that's what Gary's talking about, where if 16-bit 44.1 is CD resolution, and then we go to high resolution, we can basically take that signal and we can zoom in so much closer to get that much closer to the analog signal. Vinyl's amazing, but it is also limited, right? There's dynamic range constraints. So, a CD has a dynamic range of, I think, like 92 or 98 decibels. So from the quietest to the loudest, whether or not you use that. Vinyl, I think it's like 60 decibels, so SVL. So it's, there's pros and cons to all these things, but.
Well, I love this question that's up here now. And I mean, I think it ultimately what they're asking is the difference between an active and a passive crossover. Or I'm sorry.
Active versus digital crossover.
Well, a fully digital active crossover.
Yeah, and I know that was a purposeful decision we made with Prime Wireless, but can, Mitch, do you want to take this one, or is this a better Smith question for, comparing the crossover?
Let Smith take this one.
So a passive crossover, you're basically deciding what frequencies go to the woofer and what goes to the tweeter, totally based on just passive components. So resistors, capacitors, inductors. And you can do a pretty good job with that. But a digital crossover built into our DSP allows us to totally shape that with like the utmost precision. And so there's pros and cons to it. A digital crossover requires a whole bank of electronics. And so when we decided to, in a particular case with the Prime Wireless speakers, we're basically biamping both speakers. So each tweeter, each woofer are getting their own amplifier, and each one we can control the crossover going to each of those amplifiers.
All right. I think we need to give away some Prime Wireless speakers now. I think we've done enough to explain this technology. It's funny. So again, some people are like, love the deep dive. Other people are like, oh my God.
Too much.
Yeah. So, we're trying to find that balance, but one thing we all love is to get something free. And the winner of the SVS Prime Wireless speaker system is from Facebook, Sean Alexander. Congratulations, Sean Alexander. You are now the owner of what we were just talking about for about 10 minutes there. So congratulations, Sean.
Congratulations.
And just for anyone who may have tuned in, if you see a whole bunch of songs flying by, we're creating a playlist on Spotify and Qobuz of all the suggestions from you of great songs you like to demo for friends or just critically listen to speakers. So tune in with your suggestions. We're going to make a playlist. It's going to be awesome. So the next topic we had, actually a little bit of a debate before we came on here about whether we should even talk about it. But I think it's an interesting topic, and I think it's come up a lot of times. and that is the difference between a down-firing and a standard or front-firing subwoofer. And Gary, I'm going to let you go first here because I think we want to make sure we set the table correctly. But it's a very common question. So can you give us a peek at what you think about down-firing versus front-firing subwoofers?
Well, I mean, obviously we're a little biased because all of our cabinet subwoofers are front-firing subwoofers, and there's a reason for that. I mean, the simplest reason is that you can install a front-firing subwoofer anywhere because it's going to aim out of the cabinet. If you put it in a cabinet, it can be put behind a acoustically transparent screen in a front projection situation. It can be put in a closet and aim out of the closet. There's a gajillion ways you can place a front-firing speaker, whereas other subwoofer, I should say, whereas other subwoofers won't work in those scenarios. Smith and I had a little debate prior to this, which is why Smith is the real designer, and I have just lived with this stuff for a long time. But down-firing subwoofers, in my opinion, they're aiming at a boundary, your floor, instead of aiming at your ears. And so there are going to be anomalies with that, especially if, as is true of many of them, they're close. It's close to the boundary. It's 2 inches away from the floor and aiming down at the floor. That's never going to be as positive as aiming at your ears. Now, Smith, what do you think? And you're allowed to make me look ignorant if you want to.
No, I think really, for me, like one of the big points is that last one, which is a lot. I think generally a lot of the down-firing subwoofers you see, I would say the driver's just too close to the floor. So you're creating pressure in a space that's maybe constrained. And just like a port or some other driver, needs some room to breathe at least a little bit. And so if it's too close to the floor, you might be doing something, or maybe the system's limited in its capabilities because of that. To me, that's the big thing.
Larry, anecdotally, I mean, having heard lots of down firing and lots of front firing, what can you tell us about the sound or just the general feel of them?
Well, a lot of it is going to come down to placement as well. But, for me, I do have both in the house. I've got our PC 2000 Pro in the house, and I have SVs all over the house as well. So really, it's all about how you tune it. As Smith was saying, the closer they are to the ground, they don't sound typically as full as what ours does because the PC is not as close to the floor when it comes to the driver setup.
Yeah,
I have a question for Mitch. And maybe for Smith too. Mitch, I want to know who is the most influential audio designer you've worked closely with and why? And what did you learn from him or her? And Smith, I might ask you that same question.
That's a tough one because I worked with quite a few, as you mentioned. Floyd is Toole, who was the
say a little bit about Floyd Toole, since some people may not know who he is. Obviously,
Floyd was the head of engineering for Harman International for years and years and years for all of their overall products, including pro and consumer products, and as a result has been responsible for some amazing designs and products over the years, and some of the most popular, biggest selling loudspeaker products in history. He's also just an amazing gentleman and real easy person to talk to, and he can translate what he knows in his brain to anybody. So he can instantly pick up on your technical chops and be able to speak to you, but also be able to explain things that you may not understand to the point, like, as you're learning, right? And Smith could speak to this as well. Everybody that you come in contact with like this, you want to absorb as much as you can from. And if somebody's just purely scientific and technical and you're not that trained that way, you won't learn anything. But Floyd had a way of being able to do that.
Didn't he write a 900-page book about like acoustic design and something along those lines? Am I wrong?
He's got the Bible. Yeah.
That is the book.
Smith, do you read it from cover to cover like once a year?
I mean, it's right over here. So,
yeah, okay. What's it called? Yeah. Give it a plug, because I mean, Floyd Toole is like obviously legendary if you're in the audio industry. But what was the name of his book? Trivia. Nobody knows. Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. If somebody comments it, we should give you something. But
Smith, who was your most influential audio designer that you worked closely with?
I don't know who was the most influential, but one of the best was or is Paul Barton at PSB. So before I joined SVS, I was with another company and working with some great engineers that had previously worked at API for like Energy, Mirage, Athena, and so I don't know why they're all Canadian actually now that I think about it, but they're all Canadian. But Paul Barton has a great mind, a great ear, and just generally like a sweet man. And so I definitely picked up a lot from being around him, working in that space.
There's the Floyd tool book right there. If you want to light summer
Marine production, that's right.
That's it right there. Kick off on the beach, get your
doesn't
lawn
really roll
chair
off
out.
the tongue though.
Yeah, you might have a sunburn by the time you finish it, but it'll be a good read there. So Mitch, I think we're gonna let you go, but Gary, I'd like to keep Smith on for this the last thing we're gonna talk about here.
Okay.
Mitch, thank you for your time.
Thanks,
Next
Mitch.
time we're gonna have you back. We're just gonna have you talk about all the famous people you've met because that's all I ask you about whenever we hang out. So we'll look forward to that. But thank you, Mitch, for your time. Hopefully we'll get some decor on that wall. We'll see you soon. Okay, so. This last comment, and this has come up a couple times as well, so we figured, if we see themes popping up, we would, try to address them as much as possible. Recently, we did something with one of our legacy products that, really was one of our most popular subwoofers of all time, our 13 Ultra series. And Tony B asked, what are the advantages of the 13 Ultra upgrade program, and why did we do it? So, Gary, I think you'd be a good one to tee this off with.
Actually, I'm glad you kept Smith because Smith said to me, Gary, if we want to, and he was sort of like coming at it from a place of maybe you won't want to do this. Maybe this is something where we're shooting ourselves in the foot. I know you're trying to run a business here, but I could make the 4000 series amplifier fit exactly where the 13 Ultra amplifier goes in the 13 Ultra subwoofers. I could do that. And then I could work on that amplifier's configuration to make it take a 13 Ultra subwoofer and basically turn it into something that is almost indistinguishable from a 4000 series subwoofer. And Smith was coming at it from a place of everybody should enjoy these technologies. It shouldn't be a situation where somebody who got the 13 Ultra now feels left out. And he was wondering whether I would sign on for that. And I'm like, that's what we do. I really do believe that we don't leave people behind. We don't tell people, hey, you want that new technology, then you gotta dump your old product to get the new technology. So we worked together to create a scenario where it wouldn't be that expensive relative to the cost of the overall subwoofer. And Smith did a phenomenal job programming the amp upgrade, which is not the same programming as a 4000 series, so that it would optimize 13 Ultra.
That's right.
And this was about us not wanting to leave, and we don't leave SVS customers behind. And that was 100% why we did that. We would have, from a business place, probably would have been better off saying, well, we'd like to help you out, but it won't fit in the whole. Instead, we kind of organized it so that we could. Fair to say, Smith?
That's totally right. I mean, it part of what popped into my mind when we were doing this was we're benchmarking the 13 Ultras as we're developing the 4000 series, just to make sure that we're beating it, right? We got to be, everything's always got to be better. But as we were benchmarking the 13 Ultra, I was just like, man, this thing is really good. Like there's no short sides of that 13 Ultra driver, and so I'm like, it's a great driver. It's a fantastic driver. And so, it seemed like a natural path to go if we could do it, to be able to bring that amplifier to the 13 Ultras.
Here's the leading question of the year. What does that say about the 13 Ultra driver?
It's a great driver. It's I would say it's one of the great drivers.
It's very similar. I mean, the honest answer is and we say this all the time, 13 Ultra driver is very similar to the 4000 series driver.
Yeah.
We did some refinements,
but
they're both great drivers.
They're totally great drivers.
Yeah.
And this amplifier upgrade wouldn't have worked if it wasn't already a well-designed, well-engineered system. So that's really why this amplifier upgrade is something that we can do.
So we had a question from last week as well that sort of dovetails off this topic. It gets a little bit geeky, but I think people will enjoy that. One of the major things you get with the 13 Ultra upgrade program is the Bluetooth app, the subwoofer control and DSP app, and specifically the parametric EQ. I think a lot of people don't understand what that is and its purpose. So maybe you can enlighten the folks on what you get with the parametric EQ and maybe some of the other features within the app.
Okay, so I'll try and explain a PEQ in a quick way. So a PEQ,
4 minutes. 4 minutes.
Yeah, 4 minutes. A PEQ is basically a bell-shaped EQ curve. And so you can control the frequency that it's centered at, you can control the width of that bell shape, and then you can control the height, the amplitude of that bell curve. And so you can use that as a tool to address very specific maybe anomalies that happen at your listening position. So maybe can
I just say something to frame up the problem?
Yeah,
we didn't frame up the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is, the idea of an equalizer really makes great sense, right? Oh, we're missing this or that in the music. Let me fix that. Sounds great, right? The problem is that with typical equalizers, you try to fix one thing and you make another thing worse.
Right.
And so when Smith is talking about the bell curve, he's saying it basically lets you shape those frequencies you want to affect and not mess up the frequencies you don't. Is that fair to paraphrase you, Mr. Freeman?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And the fact that the PEQs that we offer within the app have such minute precision, like down to the frequency, down to a fraction of a dB. So if there's some extraneous energy at a very specific place that you're trying to address, you can just laser-like focus, target that element of your frequency response and smooth that out. So it's a very powerful tool for addressing what your listening experience is in your listening position.
I think there's probably some more questions that we drew from those explanations that we can look at as a future broadcast.
Sure.
But I think we're at about that time where we need to do our final giveaway and share our final thoughts. And what we will be giving away finally is actually a subwoofer that has the parametric EQ on it. Our most popular subwoofer, the SB2000 Pro. And the winner of our SB2000 Pro subwoofer is from Facebook, Jason Schillingberg. Jason Schillingberg, congratulations, my man. Vince is going to send you a note.
Nice.
We'll get you hooked up within the next couple of days. Congrats to you. So we have our work cut out for us. I think there's probably like over 1,000 songs that people have listed here.
I know the comments have been really great. It's really been fun, and everybody remembered throughout the whole show to keep those comments coming. So we'll go through them and make this playlist.
Yeah, who's responsible for that, Nick? Because that's going to take some time.
I think, Larry, you should do it.
I think it's going to be a divide and conquer effort there. So, but again, we thank you all for participating in that. We'll be announcing these playlists, maybe not in the next 2 weeks, but our next broadcast will be Thursday, August 6th at 6 p.m. Eastern time, as we normally do.
And we're trying to get a very interesting special guest. And can I hint one thing? Just to say, these are programs about great sound and not necessarily about any one product or company. We're actually talking to someone who has led other speaker companies. So we'll see if that actually happens.
That's a pretty nice dangle to put out there. I like that. So, Larry, you're going to enjoy your Dallas Mavs tonight. Gary, I know you'll be checking out the Nationals. I'll be in the dark. Smith, what are you tuning into?
I'll be climbing in the garage.
Oh, okay. Oh, everyone want to know what you were drinking too. So with your final minute, what were you sharing?
This is Lefroy Cartus cast strength quarter cask. Really nice.
Very nice. And your novelty cup, Larry, what are you drinking out of?
It's my cup from golf and stuff. So if anybody's a fan of Karate Kid, you may remember that from the first date.
There you go. So I think that's a perfect way to wrap things up. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thanks everybody. This has been fun. Hope you guys had fun.
And hope you learned something. We'll talk soon. Bye.